When kids just won't listen, parents often feel stuck between two choices: to give in or get angry. It's exhausting. We give you the top techniques directly from the experts, helping you on your path to a more peaceful, respectful, and joyful life with your kids. We have a guest today who has a timely message for people who are under lockdowns and closures and dealing with their kids' increased exposure to digital media. She is Arcadia Kim, the founder of Infinite Screentime, which is a movement dedicated to dispelling the negative connotations of screen time. Arcadia has her MBA from Harvard Business School and was formerly the Chief Operating Officer of Electronic Arts Los Angeles. Yeah, EA Arts, like the video games, where she had the privilege of working on blockbuster titles such as The Sims, Medal of Honor, Command and Conquer, and the Lord of the Rings franchise. She's now a mom of 3 screen-loving kids and helping parents manage screen time at home by focusing on good tech choices. Being in Asia, where they've been coping with the pandemic since January, she is a great resource for managing online schooling and screen time activities after the schools have been shut down. This episode will give us an overview of how Hong Kong is dealing with the pandemic, how she fosters connection with her kids around screen time, and of course, her favorite and most recommended video games. Enjoy. Arcadia Kim, welcome to Getting Kids to Listen. Thank you for joining us.
James, thank you so much for having me on your show. Getting kids to listen is, I think, one of the key hallmarks of trying to parent.
Yeah.
Boy, do I have stories around that?
I'm looking forward to hearing. You have a website called Infinite Screentime.
Yes.
And that's a big part of your message here, is about screen time and how that factors into working with kids, living with kids.
Yes. And getting them to listen. Yes.
And getting them to listen. And I know that people have a lot of questions and probably a lot of opinions about that. So I'm looking forward to uncovering where you stand on that and how you came to all that. So maybe you could summarize it for us. Is there a brief?
Sure.
Yeah.
So Infinite Screen Time is the sort of accumulation of sort of 3 really different parts of my life. And it has so much to do with really kind of getting to the same level of my kids and trying to, number 1, understand them, but number 2, try to prepare them for the future, with so much technology and everything. And so I'll give you a brief history of my background. I have 3 kids right now. I have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 7-year-old. But way before I had kids, and before they were even a thought in my mind, I used to be a game maker. And so I used to work, I was the chief operating officer for a company called Electronic Arts, which lots of kids probably know as EA Sports. And so I worked on some really amazing games like The Sims, Lord of the Rings, Medal of Honor. And so my whole, being in that industry, I worked with some of the sort of creative greats, and it was amazing. And I'm a gamer myself. I love video games. I grew up with video games, and that was a large portion of my sort of upbringing and my childhood, et cetera, et cetera. I also was a business builder. And so I built that business from when it was like in the early stages of console gaming to what it is right now. And now it's, kind of in all online. And so I actually retired from Electronic Arts when I was 39 weeks pregnant with my first child. And so I remember my retirement party being like totally pregnant, eating lots of cake. And I had this idea that I was going to, sort of ride off into the sunset, with a baby in one arm, stirring a pot of spaghetti in the other. And my life was going to be grand, and it was going to be a lot easier than making video games. While video games are fun to play, they're really hard to make, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And so I was really looking forward to this kind of time in motherhood, if you know what I mean. It was going to be a totally different pace and something that was going to, I thought, fulfill every fiber of my soul, right? Because what more could be, what could be more gratifying than that, right? In actuality, running a 450 person business is a lot easier than raising a kid. And talking about getting kids to listen. When I was working, I could tell an entire organization jump, and they would ask how high. Right. And I had this little baby, and that baby was not sort of on my schedule, if you know what I mean. And during that time, I struggled a lot with screen time, and largely because as a technologist myself, and you have to realize when, the iPhone came out when my son, it wasn't around when he was born, right? And so it came out when he was about 6 years old, right? It's very, very new. And so a lot of how to parent around this thing was, in retrospect, I realized based in fear, and there was no research about how to have kids interact with this new technology. And the technology was developing a lot, eons, light years faster than any sort of real, substantive, long-term research about its effects on children.
Right.
And so when the AARP, the American Association of Pediatrics, came out with their first rules about screen time use, it's 20 minutes, no more than 20 minutes a day. It has potential effects of, sort of rewiring the brain. It was, for me, a technologist, somebody who also loves researching everything. And someone, like many parents, are trying their best to provide the best for their kids. That stuff freaked me out. And so my kids called me Darth Mom. I basically became this kind of iron-fisted sort of monitor of the screen time.
Yeah.
And I realized at a certain point that it was sending a much more dangerous message about screen time by being so hard with them. And also, from the moment that they woke up, because it became such a thing in our family, from the moment they woke up and they went to bed, it was, when can I get on the screen time? When can I have an opportunity? I want to have more time. It was like negotiating. Whereas the conversations about sort of how life was going, or what they were seeing, or how I could coach them, or how they could coach me, that went out the window. It was all about negotiating when it came to the screen time. And so I started the Infinite Screentime to kind of push that conversation, modernize it in some way.
It sounds like you were kind of at odds with them in the first part of the story, where they're always trying to negotiate with you, but it's not the friendly negotiation, it's not the good kind of negotiation. It's two people who are really looking for something very different.
Well, so when you're negotiating with anybody, you have to have if you want to negotiate with a positive outcome on both sides, right? You have to have a vision about what you're trying to reach, right? Mm-hmm. You have to have an ideal about what the best outcome is going to be. But when you're negotiating to try to win, oftentimes you're going to the lowest sort of common denominator, if you know what I mean. And so I realized with the screen time debate is I had never fully formed an idea about how I wanted my children to interact with their technology. I had never imagined a vision or an ideal about the way I wanted them to, how they wanted them to perceive their screen time.
So
And one of the
did you
go
just
ahead.
have kind of like a time limit? Was that basically the
Oh
first
yeah, because that
iteration?
I think a lot of parents do. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I think because that was what the first recommendation from the AARP was, it was 20 minutes. And so, and I don't know what happened after the 20 minutes. Did their brain, like, did a section of their brain rot? There was no clear implication of what that would be. And so, and one of the key things that I realized, particularly reflecting on my own career and observing what was around me, was that this technology is actually here to stay. 100%, I will guarantee some element of every child's future will have to deal with technology, right? And we are becoming more and more tethered, for good or for bad or for ugly, to our smartphones. And they're providing so much space in how we're interacting with people. And in many ways, it's becoming a form of livelihood, like right now with the coronavirus. And so I realized, if I want my kids to be full functioning adults, that not only can control their screen time and not be controlled by it, but somebody who also sees this technology as a tool that enables them to, I don't know, save the world,
Sure.
become a better doctor, become a better leader in their community, become a better father, or a partner or whatever, then I want to empower them with this technology, with a relationship with this technology that's not based on fear, that's not based on threats, or is not based on some sort of clandestine negative relationship, right? That mommy instilled with them from the start, if you know
Right.
what I mean. And so that's why Infinite Screen Time, I said, there's nobody talking about this in a way that is bringing it to the home. There's still so many psychologists,
Right.
with their philosophies, which I think is really important in forming the conversation. But parenting is gritty and it's hard on a day-to-day basis, and sort of confronting that reality and saying it's okay was a really important message that I thought, or a vacuum of a message that I wanted to fill.
So what were some of the bigger milestones, or kind of going from the position you were in before to infinite screen time, at least nominally? What would you say are some of the biggest steps on that path for you?
Well, I'll tell you, James, a very personal story that became my little aha moment. And my son was maybe 10 at the time. And it was the same very typical scenario. In fact, I know there are a lot of your listeners who are moms might have, or dads might have the same experience, right? It was summer and we were, sort of with cousins, and it was a beautiful day, lots of fun things to do outdoors. And all my son wanted to do was play Minecraft. He just wanted to be on Minecraft all day long. And, it was frustrating me. And so we actually had a big vacation planned to go to Alaska on this cruise, right? And it was going to be like the highlight of that summer, the end of that summer. And this particular day, he just wasn't listening. I said, get off the iPad, you've had enough, go outside, kick the ball around. But he just that's what his choice was. He wanted to do that. And so things got very, very heated, and he ended up throwing his iPad at me. And I remember that evening just on the phone with my husband being like, I don't know how long I can do this. Like, he's, why is he being this way? And I threatened him by saying, well, if you're going to act like this, then you don't need to come to this vacation with us. And he said, fine, I don't want to go. Right. I don't want to go. It was like the clashing of the two heads. Right. And he said, I don't want to do this. And I remember talking with my husband about it and it's obviously that conversation with my son, and we're going to call it a conversation, a fight with my son, was not necessarily about screen time and choices. It was about power. And I realized I was sending a much more dangerous message about technology and screen time. In fact, I talk about this with a lot of my community, that we end up talking about screen time like it's like drugs or alcohol, right? It's like this thing that you're not allowed to do, but I'm allowed to do, right? And or this like drugs, like this, like just don't do it, right? And then when they're around it, they don't know how to act, right? And so healthier conversations, I realized this is what I needed to do. And so that was a big aha point. And so I started something new the next summer. I said, from now on, mom is not going to tell you that, I'm not going to remind you about when your 20 minutes are up. We're going to do a new thing. And it's called Infinite Screentime. And you can be on your screen as long as you want. You can wake up and you can start playing on your iPads. And mom's just going to come in and maybe ask you every once in a while about the choices you're making. And my kids, all three of them were like looking at me, big eyes, like, are you serious? Anytime we want? I'm like, yeah, it's summer. There's no reason for you not to, this is about playing and relaxing. There's no reason for you not to want to do what you want to do. And what happened that summer was absolutely different than the summer before. I realized by taking away that the structure and the tyranny of the time, they actually ended up playing with their iPads a lot less. It became less desirable. And what I was shocked, because I never thought that my kids could ever do this, was they would choose not to do it. They would be like, I'm done. I actually am done with this. I don't want to play anymore. I'm going to put it away after 5 minutes. It was shocking.
I have a lot of questions. I'm guessing when you first thought about opening the floodgates there, it was like an experiment, right? And you knew that you could change your mind if they turned into zombies, right? So I just kind of wanted to point that out, that you tried something new.
I did.
And that's the kind of worst case scenario would have been you changed it back, right?
And I do change it back every once in a while, right? And I think that that's an important aspect of it, because one of the key messages about technology is that it is a privilege, right? And so we're seeing that right now with the coronavirus, for instance, in many school districts, they don't have online school because not everybody in that school district has access to technology, right? They can't, so in that school district, because of coronavirus, they cannot meet physically, right? And while the teachers might be able to offer classes online, they can't offer it by law because not everybody in that community has access to the technology. They don't have an iPad, they don't have a phone, they don't have Wi-Fi, etc. And that's one of the key messages that I always want to teach to my children about technology, that depending upon where you live, your financial situation, even the government and the law in China, it's a very closed off sort of access to the internet. And so if they are acting in a way that they don't deserve the privilege of having access to that technology, I absolutely have the right to take it away. And they are well aware of that. And so if they haven't finished their duties, if they haven't done their chores, they haven't finished their homework, they haven't fulfilled their if they haven't fulfilled what their contribution is to the family, then I've taken away their iPads, and they recognize that that's part of the system.
So in that way, it's still, in a way, the screen is an incentive. It could be looked at that way, as an incentive for doing all the other stuff that they need to get done.
Yes, it is, but it's no longer the carrot and the stick, right? And so, meaning, whereas before, the screen time became the disciplinarian as well as the incentive, no matter what they were doing.
Right.
Cleaning your room, finishing your homework, right? If you clean up all your toys, then you'll get 20 minutes, right?
Right.
Where there's nothing about cleaning your room that has anything to do with screen time, right? By connecting those two, I think I was telling them that, screen time is like ice cream, it's a treat. Whereas now I say, listen, you have all of these things that you need to do. Screen time is about the time, right? And so if you have all of these commitments that you haven't finished, then obviously you don't have time.
Right.
But if you do finish everything, you have time.
Right.
With that free time, you can watch a television show, or you can play a quick game, or you can hang out with your friends. It's not necessarily about the treat of screen time. It's the space of having time to enjoy it however you want. And screen time is one of those many, many choices that you can make.
Do you make a distinction between screen time and, let's say, game time? Is there an hour of a certain type of screen time and an hour of a different type of screen time?
So, I'm so happy that you asked that question, because this is something that we've been talking a lot in my community, is that, do you know that there's over 100 ways to say the word poop? But there's only one word for screen time?
Sure.
And in actuality, screen time is so many different things.
Right.
Not only is it media consumption, it's games, but it's also the conversation that you and I are having right now, because we're doing it on a computer. It's work, it's writing, it's reading. And so one of my campaigns for Infinite Screentime is to say that it's infinite. There's actually an infinite number of things that you are doing on screen time. And so, I wish that they wouldn't, in fact, call it screen time, because it is so many different things. And so do I differentiate? Yeah, I definitely do, right? Because, my kid will be on right now is a perfect example of this, right? Because my kids are focusing, all of their schooling is online right now.
Right.
And in my current situation here in Hong Kong, where we have had no school since January 27th, and my school, we've been fortunate enough that they put 100% of school online. They are in classes in front of a computer from 9 a.m. to 3. And so that's a lot of screen time.
Yeah.
But what are they doing on that screen time? They're writing, they're interacting with their teachers, they're doing group projects. And I actually had a personal challenge with this, because after they would be done at 3, I wanted them to sort of, just turn off the computer and run outside, right? But what my kids wanted to do is they wanted to get on their iPads, right, after getting off their computers, and play a quick session of Clash Royale. And I'd just be like, no more screens. And they had to remind me, this is a different kind of screen. I have just been talking for 6 hours straight in every single one of my classes, trying to listen and understand what everybody's saying when they're in a Zoom with 10 kids, right?
Yeah.
I just want to sit down and like play this game passively
Right.
to let my brain just detox, right? And yeah, those are two different types of screen time. It's a totally two different types, I bet, of brain activity that's happening. And I can completely empathize and understand that. But visually, as a parent, all you see is a kid in front of a screen, and so we have to understand that there are different types of screen time.
So what tips do you have around those breaks, around getting them outside every now and then, for kids that are online so much, on their screens so much?
You know, well, yeah, that's a excellent question, and I'll answer it given the context of where we are right now with
Mhm.
coronavirus, right? And so there are many families that are living in large metropolitan areas where there are, not only are there sort of social distancing laws where you have to be 6 feet apart for each other. Here in Hong Kong, in public, you're not allowed to be in a group larger than 4 people. And then you need to be 6 feet apart from each other. And that's a law. You could get actually fined if there's large gatherings. Um, but just to flatten the curve with coronavirus, it's really important to social distance. And when a child has been online at home and they're just cooped up,
Yeah.
it's really important to be very, very clear and deliberate, right, about taking those walks outside safely, or doing exercise together in a safe way, also indoors, right? And so, what we have done in our family is we've scheduled it. We say, I know from their school schedule that they have a break at like 10:30 and 2 o'clock, and we schedule a quick sort of workout session, and we do it together.
It's great.
Yeah, and we'll do like sort of a post-dinner walk, right? Not every day, but on most days that we can. And we schedule that as blocks where we do it together, because a lot of times with this online schooling, everybody's in their individual sort of space doing their classes, and that's a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the kind of thing I was hoping to hear, that there are times, specific times, not, it's easy to just say, oh, you should, or even when we're talking to ourselves, I shouldn't do this long, I should take a break sometime, but to actually have it scheduled. And then do you find who's keeping the schedule? I mean, you said your youngest is 7, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that you're in charge of a lot of the ringing the bell for the schedule, if you will. Is there a way that they are also managing the schedule, or is that up to you more?
Yeah, in order for the infinite screen time to work well, the child really does need to feel as though that they're in control. And yes, so the child really does need to feel like they're in control. And part of the key tenets is to have them make the decision about how much screen time that they want. Uh, and there's a lot of tools to help you along this path. So I have sat down with my 7-year-old and I've asked her, so during the week, when you have school on Monday through Friday, how much screen time do you want to have? And she'll say, oh, I probably have enough time for maybe an hour. And I want to do this particular type of screen time. And so what I do then, with her sitting right next to me, is go into Apple Screen Time function and set it up so that she knows she's got 30 minutes where she can watch her programs, 30 minutes where she can play a creative game that she likes to play. And we've set it up. And what's interesting about kids and probably adults too, we have no idea how quickly that hour can go. And what happens with Apple Screen Time is that when that hour is up, then it locks, it locks you out. And then there's a little window that kind of comes up that says your screen time limit is up. You can ask mom for more time. And I will absolutely give them 10 minutes of time to finish up what they were working on, because that's really frustrating. If you are, and I think if I harken back to my story before about when my son threw the iPad at me, I wanted him to finish right there and right now. And he was in the middle of something.
Sure.
And that's, how frustrating that is. Like if you're watching Game of Thrones and somebody walks over, just turns off the TV.
Right. No, that's a high crime.
You are going to have, you're gonna blow up.
Right.
And so I think that's an important thing to remember. And so I will give her an extra, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever she might need. She'll tell me to finish up what she needs to do. And then she has now controlled her own screen time,
right?
Assisted by tools by me. And so that's a really important dialogue, conversation to have with your children, so that you can start then having them reflect. Oh, so wow, an hour went by really fast. I didn't know that.
So you're letting them, you're making sure that they're part of the conversation of establishing the boundary in the first place, to just have that conversation of how much screen time do you want anyway? Because before even having that conversation, you don't know, and maybe they don't know. They know that they want to keep playing that game right now, but when you sit down with a calendar or with a daily agenda and say where, when, how much, and helping them tune it to what they want.
So what I'm trying to build with my kids is a self-awareness.
Right.
And it's actually something that I don't have when it comes to screen time, because we never grew up with this thing. I mean, it was hoisted on us as adults. I don't know about your generation, but my generation was like, I was a full-formed adult. And when this thing kind of came to me, I was...
with the iPhones and the internet, but, I had the Nintendo and all that as a child.
Yeah.
And I remember just real quick, the first time I ever got a game that had a timer on it, that was the Donkey Kong for Super Nintendo, I believe. It kept track of how long you played, and I got it for Christmas. And I think after 2 days or so, 3 days, I'd played it for like 36 hours. I remember.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember looking at it and thinking, I've played this longer than I've done anything else, including sleep, since I got it. And
I know, and we now have this society of binging, right? And really indulging in so many different categories. And when I reflect myself on my media consumption, or if I just let myself go without it being managed, I mean, I was a gamer. I made video games. I mean, this is, I can go down the deep end.
So you know what it's like to see the sun coming up and go, oh, I need to go to bed.
That's right. And so I wanted to have, build this self-awareness, with my kids. And it's not perfect. And I know that it's going to be a journey and struggle for them, because there's so many things that are coming out that are, they just pull you in. But by having that conversation, I feel like I'm preparing them more than I was prepared myself.
Yeah.
Right. That being said, now with coronavirus, things are the new reality. Things are off kilter, and I wouldn't say it's a lot harder. It's just a new mode of having to operate, and requires a lot more conversation and dialogue. Luckily for families, we're all kind of stuck in together. And so we can connect around the technology and figure out how to be and operate. For instance, so my kids, we love our movies. And so we're a little bit stuck right now, but we're trying to get through all of the Marvel universe in chronological order, so that when we get to the end game, we've got sort of a deeper understanding about what happened historically. We're stuck on the Thor movies right now. We can't seem to get through them, but we're using that as like a family time.
Right.
Once we've finished all the things that we need to do to connect, and because we're sort of self-isolated, that's become a major sort of bonding area for us as a family, particularly in this new reality.
So it's good. It's nice to hear, infinite screen time means in the way you have it set up, that you are setting, not only are you setting the time boundaries or helping set them with the kids, but you also are looking at the different types of what's going on the screen, because when I first hear infinite screen time, I know a lot of kids with infinite screen time, and it's because they don't have anything else going on in their worlds, and it's not pretty. So it's nice to hear the kind of ins and outs of all that. Do you have any favorite types of games that you see your kids engaging in, or are there quality games versus trash games that you nudge them towards, or that you are happier to see them working on?
So when my kids make their media choices, I want them to make informed choices. And so there's this wonderful website called Common Sense Media, which, if you go to Common Sense Media, you can type in actually any movie, television show, video game, and they will give you a rating about what its appropriateness is for on age, whether or not it has any sexual content in it, curse words. It's got even how difficult it is, and parents will write their reviews about what they think about this particular media or game, and kids will also write their review as well. And because anytime they want to download something, they need to get my permission. That's the way we've set it up with the family plan. They know that I will ask them, so did you common sense it? Why do you want to get it? And they have to present to me their reasons. And if it's not within the realm of their, if the common sense does not say, well, it's a little bit too old for you, they know that I'm going to ixnay it, right? And so but those media choices, I think, it's very important. It's very important for them to know what they're consuming, or have anticipation about what they're consuming.
Do you play with them? Do you have games that you play with them?
Yes.
On screens?
Yeah, we play. Yeah, we play. We play lots of games together. My kids my son, he has a Minecraft world that he has built since he was 6 years old, that we all have little sort of homes in, and there's a currency and all that other stuff. Nice. He's very much into that. We will play Clash Royale together. We play some console games together, although console games are harder to pick up these days because they take so much space, sort of so much mental space.
Yeah.
So when we do play together, it's a real treat. It's really fun.
Yeah. I
envision that we will continue to play even when they're adults. I hope so. I think that that's my prediction, is that that's the way that games will sort of evolve. Whereas I think lots of games, just to sort of put my futurist hat on as a game maker, we have now an entire generation of gamers that have grown up with gaming as part of the myriad of entertainment choices that they make. And because of the smartphone, we can walk around and play games regularly, as anywhere we are. And so there's a lot of casual online games out there that are really focused on just connecting people. And
will you fill me in on some of your favorites? Because I've been kind of saying no to video games for myself as a recovering addict. It's like, no, games are bad for me. I shouldn't even look at them. But I can imagine that there are lots of great games that foster some human connection. Do you have any favorites there?
Well, if you're a Scrabble fan, have you ever played Words with Friends?
Words with Friends, yeah, that one's been around for.
Yeah. It's been around for a long time, right? And so, my brother, actually, he is the president of Zynga, who makes Word for Friends. Okay. Yeah, and so what he's saying is that now with coronavirus, that there's been a huge surge of people who are coming back to these casual games, Word for Friends, Farmville, that are these old classics that they used to play but kind of forgot about. And they're playing again. And the wonderful aspect about these games are that you're connecting with friends and you're playing across, you can get out quickly on there and play and connect, etc. I've been playing a lot of Clash Royale recently, and we're in a clan. And so we are helping each other out by giving each other items and, encouraging each other across, so that our clan can get better and we can hopefully play sort of more tournaments. And that's been really exciting and fun. There's so many wonderful ways to connect, particularly in this time.
Yeah. Well, Arcadia, we are 12 hours apart, I think, and I know that my own Apple screen time is about to kick me off of my machine. Do you have? Is there anything that you'd like to say as we wind down, or is there anything that you wish we talked about that we haven't got around to yet?
The primary tenet of Infinite Screentime is about getting down on your hands and knees and seeing technology from the point of view of your kids. I think many parents look at it as something that's this foreign object that has invaded into the family fabric.
And it can be if it's out of control and all the wrong things.
Yeah. And absolutely. But if you get on your hands and knees and you see it from the point of view of your child, children are these balls of energy with unfettered passion for whatever they're passionate about, right? And if you see it from that perspective and you see how passionately connected they are with this aspect, you would try to figure out what it is that they're passionate about. If it wasn't screen time, like let's say it was baseball, right? Then you would be like, oh, okay, son, I want to figure out why this connects with you, right? But because it happens to be screen time and we have already a preconceived notion of it being negative because of the way it was introduced to families, that we've already put it in a bad pile. And so I would recommend, or I would just encourage you to look at it from the perspective of your child and see why it's something that's so passionate, like impassioned for them. and play a video game with them, or go with them to see what they're doing online, or to see how they're using it. And when you uncover that sort of like first layer, then you'll get to understand your child a little bit more. And maybe it's probably most likely that you do need to figure out ways for them to self-manage their own screen time. But you'll never, I'm so passionate about the fact that you'll never get there in a really clear conversation with a dialogue with your child if you become that kind of hammer on them on this topic.
Yeah.
And it'll become something that has a force that's stronger than you, right? Because the technology is going to be a part of our lives no matter what. And so, this is an opportunity for a bridge of communication. And if you don't explore that bridge, there could be so much gold in connecting with your child that you're missing out on.
Right. Yeah, I like that point about the fact that technology is going to be around forever, and it's going to get better and better. It's kind of like you can't beat it, so you need to join it. Figure out how it can work in your relationship instead of taking away from your relationship. Do you have any favorite resources besides Common Sense Media, or any favorite researchers that we should be checking out in this field?
Yes. And so I love recommending a book called The Art of Screen Time by Anya Kamenetz. She is an NPR reporter, and she has a very balanced view about screen time, which I think is very practical and useful going forward, because of the fact that it is it's very scientifically researched and backed around the correlation of poor sleep and screen time, which I think is true, even from my own experience. And but she also talks about all the good that can come out of it too. And so it's very balanced. I love that book. It was one of the inspirations for me to sort of push this dialogue. That's something I would recommend.
Great. Art of Screen Time. And your website is Infinite Screentime.
Yes. www.infinitescreentime.com. I also have and I have an Instagram that I'm trying to get to where a lot of parents are, a lot of moms, right? And so Instagram has served as a really wonderful platform to sort of continue to push this message and try to increase my reach. And so, my point of view on the screen time debate is not about the debate. It's more about the experience and the stories. And right now, because of coronavirus, there are so many stories that are based around screen time, because it's the safest mode to communicate and connect right now. And there's so many family stories, there's so many connecting stories, there's so much what I see shame and anguish about the fact that the kids are on the screens because mom and dad have to work, or they have to get dinner on the table, and they're trying to juggle the fact that the kids are home from school and they can't go outside. And I see so much, particularly on Facebook and Instagram, of moms just feeling like they failed because they're allowing their kids to do screen time for much longer now.
Right. And
my big message right now in this particularly unique time in history is to don't feel that shame, is to just give yourself a break. Mm-hmm. In fact, this might be an opportunity for you to explore this medium with your child and build connection that can fortify them for the future. If that shame is creeping into your home and it's making you feel like you might be a bad mom or a bad dad, that is more painful and more long-lasting sort of grief around this particular period then just letting this whole screen time thing go a little bit.
Right. Right.
So,
Well, I think that's a fine note to end on, to just let people know that that they have an opportunity now to engage in a new way. That's
yeah, I hope you got enough sound bites.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I released this in a long form thing, so a sound bite is just a sound bite. I'd like, I'll release all of this. So thanks for your time, thanks for your wisdom, and
Thank you.
thanks for caring about this issue. It's scary, and for people, it's new to all of us. So we need people to blaze the trail and figure out where we can all be heading with this. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, James.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Bye.